What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to SoCal Exploring, and welcome back to the Keep Exploring podcast. In today's episode, our special guest has had a truly amazing career composing music for tons of different projects, including one that all horror fans know and love to this day, Killer Klowns from Outer Space. Please welcome our guest today, music composer John Massari. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on.
Of course, it's weird. We kind of met through Halloween Horror Nights, which we'll preference a little bit through this podcast, but the way that we came together is through Halloween Horror Nights,
Right.
which is a big topic today. And today we are going to be talking about all things related to both Killer Klowns from Outer Space and John's career, what it was like to work on the movie, and even his thoughts on getting brought into the realm of Halloween Horror Nights because of the hit Maze this past year. But before that, I'm reading. For those of you guys who are wondering why I look down constantly, it's because I'm kind of trying to script these podcasts a little bit more, at least the intro, so it's more clean for you guys. And a lot of you guys have recommended that. But if you guys are interested in donating to my Buy Me a Coffee page, it helps us produce higher quality theme park content. Just donate $3 today. Click the link in the description. And we also have merchandise available at teespring.com/SoCalExploring/stores. No, that's wrong. teespring.com/stores/SoCalExploring-3, and you can follow all of our socials. Follow us on Spotify if you're listening through Spotify. John, where can they find you before we start off?
Well, in all the usual places, you can find me here on Instagram, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and that's the best place to get if you want a one-on-one connection with me. That's the best venue I would recommend.
Yeah, John Massari across all the boards. You can find him. He's a big hit now. He has been a big hit, which is crazy. How much the community around Killer Klowns from Outer Space has actually stuck with and grown over the years. My first question to you is, what was it like hearing your music in a Halloween Horror Nights maze?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well if you're going to talk specifically about mazes, the first maze that I experienced was here in Hollywood, Horror Nights.
Yeah, because Orlando did the Scare Zone before us.
Yes, and it was fascinating from a musical standpoint. It was fascinating the pieces of music they extracted from the score and featured prominently from the moment you were getting in line. And by the way, you're listening to the music when you're like 50 yards away from the attraction.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're waiting, if the lines were, this is another thing that was amazing to me. There were sometimes at any given time, I understand from the creative directors, at any given time, there's between 1,000 and 3,000 people in line.
Yeah.
For just like a 5-minute experience. And to me, that's absolutely incredible because, my goodness, you think that people would wait for that long easily for an hour and a half experience watching a new movie.
It's insane.
But here's what, what was my impression like? Well, the music that they ran when you're waiting in line, you're in the dark and you're listening to the music that primarily was in the forest when you first see the clown spaceship,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of my favorite pieces of music. As far as I was concerned, the whole movie could have taken place in the forest and in that spaceship, kind of like Alien, but they kind of did a takeoff on the Blob, where they wanted to go into the city and chase teenagers and stuff like that. But I was so captivated by that mysterious, beautiful spaceship in the forest, just sitting there, very alluring. And so they played that music, that very beautiful, well, if I may say so, that very sultry, mysterious music while you're waiting in line. It really helps sets up the mood. And when I went with my daughters, that piece was originally called the Secret Princess Castle or something like that.
Yeah.
And they go, Dad, that's the Secret Princess Castle. And I go, yeah, you're right, that's it. So
yeah, that's funny.
It was very gratifying. It was very gratifying and very, very heartwarming to see how people enjoyed it.
And it's funny how you talk about how it kind of sets the mood, because with Halloween Horror Nights, the main goal with these intellectual properties, as we like to call them, is to make you more a part of the movie. And just being outside and getting in that mood of the first scene of the movie, knowing that you're about to go into the maze and experience the whole movie in real life, is really neat.
Hmm.
Did you know what Halloween Horror Nights was before they showcased it first at the event, which was Killer Klowns Scare Zone in Orlando in 2018? That was the first time they showcased it. But did you know about Halloween Horror Nights before?
Well, well, of course, I've known about it.
Yeah.
I don't think I've attended any of them. If anything, I had the first horror night type thing I had ever gone to was way back when Knott's Berry Farm was doing the Not Scary Farm.
Oh, you're a not scare farm veteran.
Right, and that was the very first time, and then and that was it. I haven't been there since, and I don't even want to tell you how many years that was. But when I went to see, when I heard they were having a scare zone in Orlando, I just had to go.
Yeah.
You know,
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's not like they invited me. It's
Yeah.
just, I said,
It's
I'll
one
just
of
go.
you have
I'm
to
just
do,
going.
like, that's you're such a big part of that movie. It's like of course you're going to want to see it.
Oh yeah, and my favorite aspect about that is just watching everyone enjoy themselves at the scare zone. As a matter of fact, people have told me in Orlando, especially, they actually liked the scare zone better because they can hang out there longer. It's a longer
Yeah.
experience,
And you can just like chill there all night if you wanted to.
and that's what people did. And
Uh-huh.
I think all the food outlets were very happy
Yeah,
to
yeah.
supply food and drink to everyone while they were there.
Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that you went to Scary Farm a long time ago, so that's really neat. You guys
Yeah.
heard it here first that John Massari was a Haunt fan back then. What? How does it feel, even after all these years since the movie's release date, having tons of fans still support you and come up to you? I know the night that I didn't even notice you standing outside the Killer Clowns maze, but when you did come up to me, I noticed that you had like a little group of fans. How's it like still having fans to this day know exactly who you are?
Well, here's what is so wonderful for me is that there's very young fans, and when I'm saying very young, I'm saying 5 and 6 years.
Yeah, I see
Those
it.
are
I
my
see it on your
favorite.
Instagram. You're taking pictures with like a little 7-year-olds who are dressed up in the shorty outfits and everything.
Right, kids come right up to me, and it's so wonderful. Everyone's very forward, forthright, and there's just like absolutely no fear coming up to me and talking to me, and it's absolutely. Those are my favorite fans, are the tiny ones,
Yeah.
But the people that were there that night were actually people that are in my circle of friends that we do media together. You
Hmm.
know, there's a guy who his name is Daniel Rusher. He does DJ work. He's a filmmaker, and he's from Germany, and he works in Germany, and he works out here also. And there was a friend of mine who was a comedian that was Steve Simon. And so those are the people I happened to be hanging out with. But then there were other people that I had just met that evening,
Yeah.
you know,
Uh huh.
that saw that I had announced on Instagram that I was coming over, and if they wanted to say hi. And I was passing out, like I had like little goodies to pass people, and it's kind of like, here's what it's like. It's like I feel like I have an extended family. I have like
Yeah.
nieces and nephews, and I guess grandchildren.
Yeah. There you go. That works out.
you know and it's just so wonderful that it's this crazy little movie that bonds us, and it's really rewarding to know that part of the experience of the movie, not only visually and story and the absolute bizarre concept, but they had a connection with the music in some way, which is very just really just I can't even tell you. It's like you can imagine if imagine you've made a gift for someone,
Hmm.
and they're really happy that you did not just gave them something, but it's something that they can enjoy, and it's part of their life.
And it's crazy the effect that your music has on people from uh, a very terrifying movie, and people still love the music. Like they cherish that music so much. I mean, even just listening through it, because Universal would blast it throughout the event. You know,
Hmm.
everywhere you went, and whether it be the plaza in the front or down at the actual maze. it's like
Right.
once you hear that music, it just gets you in the mood. And like that's one of my favorite movies of all time. The music score fits perfectly, and I feel like with this horror movie in specific, you have your other horror movies that have the great music soundtracks and everything, but with this movie, music is such a big part of it, which I
Mm-hmm.
like. Did the Kyoto brothers um approach you, or did you have a like an audition or anything like that?
Well, that's a very good question that you asked that, because the media business is a very, very competitive business.
Oh, trust me, I know that. Trust
Yeah,
me.
it's extraordinarily competitive, and um, I'll give you the short story. There was a very dear friend of mine I was working with. He was a producer, and he had fallen. He was doing very, very well, and then all of a sudden he had, things did not go well for him. And
Hmm.
he was my roommate for a few years, and he was a very industrious guy, very, very well read. Was always going to the library. Was like basically planning his next move.
Yeah.
And sometimes this takes months and years. It's not magical. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
So one day he comes back from the library and he says, I see this little ad in Variety. Someone's looking to do music for their movie trailer. And this was a guy back in, his name was, the guy that was doing the movie trailer. His name was Eric Young,
Hmm.
which I became very good friends with. I did his movie trailer, and then about a year after that, he said, I want to introduce you to some people I've worked with in commercials out here. There's the Kyoto brothers. They're doing a crazy movie. It may be beneath you, but I still wanted to, they're looking for a composer. They're not really happy with the variety of composers they're getting, and they want
Yeah.
something kind of different, or someone that they can relate to. So I said, okay, what kind of movie? Well, it's a science fiction movie. I go, well, that's perfect. Well, it's also a horror movie. Oh, that's great. And he says, and it's kind of like a comedy too. That's even better. What's the title? He says, I'm not really sure. It's really bizarre. It's like invading clowns from outer space. I go, oh my god, I'm in love. So So I talked to Steven on the phone for a few minutes, and he said, well, listen, this sounds good. Why don't you come down to a screening? We had a screening at Warner Brothers Studio.
Hmm.
We're going to have a screening with a few other people, and we're going to have a little talk, and we'll see what happens from there. So I go to this screening on the Warner Brothers lot. It's like, if you're familiar with the Warner Brothers lots, you know where the water tower is.
Yes, I
It's like
do. Yeah.
you park around that area, and there's around that area there's some screening rooms. So we went into a screening room that had about 150 seats. All of them were full, and the music director, his name was Bob Honka, really brilliant man, gets up and says, hello, thank you for all for coming. I'm going to show this film. It has absolutely no music in it whatsoever, no temp music, which is a real relief, because that means they didn't fall in love with any particular
Yeah,
sound.
they're still looking for somebody.
They're looking for something, And so, I saw the movie, and I did not realize I was sitting right next to Steve Kyoto, the director.
Yeah.
And from time to time, when I was during the movie, I would turn to him and I said, "This is absolutely incredible." And I didn't know who he was. I
Yeah.
thought he was
You
another
you were
filmmaker. I
just
thought he was
telling
another
him.
composer.
You're
Yeah, that was another composer, And so afterwards, the director and all the filmmakers, the brothers and the music director says, "Well, listen, we're gonna as you leave, you can pick up a VHS tape, pick a scene that you like, and do some music to us. And if you can get it back to us in a week, that would be great."
Uh-huh.
And so I knew exactly what scene I was going to do. There's the scene where the Mike and Debbie come up to the spaceship, and they get involved in it, and then there's a chase in the spaceship. They either get chased out, and then the clowns march onto the town.
Yeah.
Right there, it like that 4.5 minutes or whatever defines the movie.
Yeah. It sets it up perfectly.
It's like the cornerstone,
Uh-huh.
right? So I go, that's what I'm going to do. Well, I discovered that everyone did something else. That some people just like pick any scene and what have you.
Yeah.
Anyways, I just fell in love with that scene, and I knew when I first saw it, there was a piece of music I had written when I was in high school with my high school band,
Mm-hmm.
a band called Crisis. As a matter of fact, I just had pizza and beer with one of the guys in the band like a few weeks ago, excuse me. And I wrote this like kind of the Killer Klowns theme. I said this would be cool. Let's make this one of our original pieces. And they go, what kind of chord is that? And I go, well, it's not really a chord. It's kind of it's a riff. You know, it's a line. You know, it's bum 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 bum. Right? And they go, yeah, but it's got to be a chord that we can play along with. I go, well, it actually kind of spells out an F major 7 chord. And they said, oh no, that's a jazz chord. We can't be playing jazz chords. We play hard rock, you know, because we were playing like Led Zeppelin and
all those guys.
Kiss and, you know, Blue Oyster Cult and all that stuff. So to play an F major 7 chord is like, unheard of. So when I saw the Killer Klowns, that scene where they're marching onto the clown, I go, that's it. I'm resurrecting that piece and I'm putting it right there because that's where it belongs. So I went and did a piece of music and that's kind of influenced by classical music because the Killer brothers are they're very keen on classic Hollywood scores, but they wanted to have it performed with very interesting instruments.
Yeah.
So it may have had the influence of a classical score with the development of the themes and all that, but it's not going to sound like your everyday score. So that was the challenge, is to use all the electronics to make something interesting. So I did that, and I turned it in, and a few days later I got a call. It says, well, you're the one that everyone chose. We did a blind test, and yours made it. And I was just so thrilled. I was like spinning.
Oh, yeah.
I thought, this is so wonderful, because at the time, Tim Burton had Beetlejuice. And I thought, this is a great trend in horror and film.
Yeah, wacky horror films.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, just what the doctor ordered, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the big things on why films like Killer Klowns from Outer Space and Beetlejuice are so popular, because nowadays you don't really see those wacky, fun horror films that still have the horrifying aspect to them, but also have that comedical aspect. Right. There's just not a lot. You know, they try to do it sometimes, like with This Is the End, which isn't really a horror film at all. They brought it to HHN because they thought it was scary enough, but there's not that many movies out there like it anymore, and I think that's why there's such a great community around Killer Klowns from Outer Space, which segues me into one of my questions is, why exactly do you think that community is still around, and why do you think it keeps growing bigger?
Well, you know, I think it was a very pleasant series of events that happened, because it was just Killer Klowns came out at that period of time where a cable company is not going to show your movie unless it's been in the movie theaters. Yeah. Right? So it was in the movie theaters long enough to kind of like get some attention to it, but not long enough. You know? So, for instance, when it was only 1 week here in Los Angeles, and the LA Times gave it a nice review, and the LA Weekly, 2 very respected
news sources,
movie reviewers, movie reviewers gave it great reviews. But then when people came to see it, they said, oh, it's not here anymore. Oh, how do we see it? We have to wait till it comes to cable, and then I think it went to cable, then VHS. So when it went to cable, it was people loved it. People, you know, it's the perfect popcorn movie. It's bizarre, and you know, that's where its audience started to grow. And I think it's almost like kind of like comfort food. People like says, listen, I want to watch my Killer Klowns from Outer Space because I had a rotten day today.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm so happy that it brings people that amount of relaxation and joy.
It's one of those movies where, like you said, it's almost like a comfort food thing. And back then, it seemed like there weren't tons and tons of horror movies like that. Like that was one of its first back then. So it's just perfect to set up the whole community. And nowadays, it's just like you see Killer Klowns mask at like conventions, or you see posters, or you see everything, you know. And now with Halloween Horror Nights getting involved, now Killer Klowns is such a big part of Halloween Horror Nights history, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to see it again in the future. But it's just crazy how big that it was big back then, and then it had like kind of like a small break, and now as of recently, it just seems like the community just keeps growing and growing, which it's really insane. That just goes to show you how favored this movie is and how popular this movie
Hmm.
is a strong
Right.
fan base around it. And I'm one of those fans. I love it. I absolutely love the film, and it's funny that you had a kind of not. You said that you already saw the film in a screening room, but you when you're composing the music, you kind of had a storytelling aspect in your head as well in order
Hmm.
to implement that music in. I think that's really neat. Uh,
Hmm.
and do you know what the Kyoto brothers thought of the maze this year?
Oh, they loved both of them. They went to both of
They
them,
went to both of them.
and they were absolutely thrilled because here at Universal they had a nice red carpet thing
Uh huh.
and there was a reception,
Yeah.
and we were there, from like, oh gosh, 5 in the afternoon till like midnight, easily midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah. When
and it
you do
was
those
just a
red
lot of fun.
carpet things, it's crazy.
It's like we were amongst our people.
Yeah. Yep.
you know that's I mean, how it doesn't get better than that. These are the people that this attraction was made for. And and they're, it's interesting. I've run into people lately, I'd say in the last 2 years, that
Hmm.
they actually come up to me and they have a revelation. They identify
Yeah.
with certain characters in the movie. There's so many people that identify with Shorty.
So many. So many.
So they
Everyone.
just love
I see
Shorty.
that everybody loves him, and because yes, all the clowns are iconic characters, but he in specific, the knock your block off scene, is
Or
just so
she.
iconic. Or she, yeah. I saw, who was I watching? Oh, it was our good friend Anthony, his video, and you were like, I think that it's a she. This crazy fan theory.
It could be a girl clown, and there are so many girls that do, girls and boys that identify with Shorty,
Uh huh.
because I guess he represents a certain aspect of society. Someone that's like, maybe is not as tall as everyone, maybe
Yeah.
doesn't have as much going on, but boy, don't sit
Packs the
there and
punch.
don't mess with her or him. Don't mess with Shorty, because there'll be hell to pay for.
That's great. It's so cool to see how people like see themselves as the
Yeah,
clowns.
because he stood up for
Exactly.
himself or herself,
He knocked his block off.
And I think that's what people identify with. That's very, very, and that wasn't done intentionally.
No,
That was
it wasn't.
basically, okay. Let's have a seemingly small, um, uh, short baby clown that's like possibly harmless, and then it comes up against a biker gang and
Yeah.
just whoops them to pieces. Knocks their block off.
Uh huh.
That's the intention. It wasn't like, oh, let's have this person be emblematic of uh, a person of society that's probably shorter and looked down upon, but they're able to stand up for themselves. I don't think that was fully the intention,
Uh huh.
but that's what it kind of developed into. The fans have kind of brought that to the forefront.
That's always the greatest thing with movies is yeah they have the normal movie there, but the fan base around it creates fan theories and creates stuff, and sometimes you gotta wonder like is that could that really be a good theory? And that the shorty
Right.
one is one of them, so it's really neat. John, I gotta ask you though, which one did you like better, Orlando or Hollywood? Be honest here.
Everyone's been asking me that, and I'll be very honest with you. Um, I'm going to give you my definitive answer, and it's going to just have to stand. I love them both.
There you
I
guys
love
go.
them both.
A lot of people were asking me
Um,
to ask you that too. A lot of my fans were like,
now,
Ask him which one was his favorite."
they were very different. I thought maybe Orlando sets it up and they rebuild it here, and no, they don't do that. Each
Yeah.
one has their own creative perspective
Oh
on
yeah.
each movie. You know,
Did you go through
um,
any of the other mazes in Orlando?
well, I did go through the Ghostbusters, and let me see what else. I think no, not the Stranger Things. No, the oh my goodness, how can I Poltergeist.
There you go. Oh, so you went to oh yeah, because you went to the Scare Zone one. Yeah, I forgot. So
Yeah,
you got to
Scare Zone one. And but then when I went to the again back to Orlando,
uh-huh.
to the house, um, I would say that I think I only went to the Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That's the only one I went to. But I tried to spend. I was on this weird schedule, and then I didn't realize that people were hanging out by the Terenzi Brothers ice cream truck.
Uh-huh.
They were like waiting in line, and like I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, I should have been there to get to meet people.
Yeah.
And that would have been wonderful. So for anyone that's listening to this that was in Orlando, I'm really sorry I didn't get to hang out with you. So I figured when I came back to Hollywood, I would be very diligent and make sure that I showed up maybe like once every 2 weeks and told people I was there just to meet and greet people. I accidentally, I was, and this is truly an accident, I just happened to be in the gift shop. Someone wanted me to buy them one of the, I think they wanted me to buy one of the pins or something like that. And so there's a guy that bought a bunch of Killer Clown stuff. And I said, oh, listen, if you'd like me to sign any of that, I'd be happy to.
Uh-huh.
And so the guy signed me up. And then the manager puts me at the end, puts me in the back.
Really?
And then there's a line of people. I'm signing all their stuff. And she comes up to me and says, we have to thank you. Why? Because we are now out of inventory. We only have one.
So you had kind of like an unofficial meet and greet, almost. Like an unofficial signing.
There was one, right. There was one Clownzilla mask left. But people just started buying stuff.
Yeah.
And all the T-shirts were gone, and all the whatever they were selling. There was a ton of stuff they were selling. So.
Yeah, that's really neat. That is really, really neat. I like how no matter what you love both of them, and I can see why you love both of the mazes. I thought the Orlando Clownzilla puppeteer was impressive. That was huge.
I wish I could have taken him home with me.
Yeah, right. And that's one of the things that Orlando does different from us is because they got the big sound stages over there, and
Yes.
You over here in Hollywood we just have tents.
Right, and what's interesting is that when you see the to be quite honest with you, when I went through, actually both of them, they have the feeling, they have the same feeling that I have. There's one ride at Disneyland I go to all the time, and we make it a family tradition. Just as the parks is closing, we want to be the last people on one of two rides, Mr. Toad's Wild Ride or It's a Small World.
Interesting.
We want to be the last people and say, okay, guys, we're closing it down now.
Like we're gonna be the last ones.
Right, and there's a charm that those rides have in their simplicity and their effectiveness. That is what they do at the at least for the Killer Clowns. It's just so sophisticated enough, and it's just as simplistic enough to be charming enough to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I mean, but both of them have got the color schemes down really well, which is really awesome.
It's funny that you bring up that tradition that you want to be the last people on the ride, and I saw that you want to be the last person to walk through Killer Clowns on closing night.
I was the last person to walk out, and I don't want to say the clowns got out of character, but some of them walked out with me.
And it's so funny, and I was talking about this like on the previous podcast I do. On closing night, I don't know if you know this, but from opening night and closing night of Halloween Horror Nights, it's just such a different feeling. All the characters are so much more happier and like going out of character because it's their last night. It's a really neat thing to experience on closing night.
Right.
And I got. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So, about midway through, I was invited to talk to the scare actors, and they didn't actually know who I was until I came up to talk to them, and until I identified myself.
Yeah.
And I just said I want to congratulate everyone for having such patience and such fortitude to having to listen to my music over and over. Every night without going
like every 30 seconds.
Without going completely out of your mind. You people are brave.
That's crazy how they do that. Like with any maze, they have to listen to the same cue every time. Every night they're out there. It's crazy.
But you know what? They really love it.
They do, and a lot of them, like, it just amps them up, which is really neat. What are because you've obviously had more of a career than just Killer Clowns from Outer Space. What are the beginning steps that you take when starting on a new project?
You mean like right now?
Like to compose music for any project that you may do.
Well, it's interesting. From an artistic perspective, it's if something I see resonates with me. For
Mm-hmm.
instance, I'm doing something now with a Japanese amusement park where everything's in miniature,
Oh, that's
and
cool.
they the director admired a particular score I did for a movie a while back that they used as a temp track.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm saying, gosh, how can I don't want to like copy what I did, but at the same time, it's got sound enough alike what I did way back when, but go to another level, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is I don't get caught up in all the details because that bogs me down. So
Oh
I
yeah.
almost like I feel like I hear it in the distance. It's gonna come to me. I can kind of feel it and hear it. It's just a matter of working it out. I remember Michelangelo used to say that when he has a huge hunk of granite or of marble, he says the figure is in there. I just got to remove all the things that don't belong,
Uh-huh.
so that I'm left with what we're looking for. It's in there. It's in the block of stone. And I
Yeah.
kind of feel like that too. It's in my head. It's just a matter of bringing it to the forefront. So and then what I do sometimes I noodle. I look at the visuals many times. Backwards and forwards,
Mm-hmm.
fast and slow, and then I don't look at it anymore. And I noodle at the piano or in my own head. I may think of a melody or a motif, and I'll write that down, and then I'll start building a basic like little piano track
Yeah.
to kind of get the form in, and then it starts to grow little by little. It's almost like if you've ever seen a figure sculpture, let's say with clay, maybe they might start with like a wire form. You really don't see what it's going to be.
Uh-huh.
The artist can see in their head what it's going to be, but it's like the basic outline of the shape of the arms, or what angle the head is in, and then it's a matter of getting the clay put onto that wire frame, and then all the details start coming in.
Yeah, it's like you said from the very beginning, you don't want to stress the details, but you know it's in the back of your head.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is I feel like it's a lot of people don't realize unless you're from a creative standpoint. Like with me and my when I make my YouTube thumbnails, I have
hmm
this vision in my head on what it's gonna look
hmm
like, but I don't necessarily draw it out yet or anything. I just process it in my head.
right.
It's in there.
And YouTube thumbnails. I mean, there's a science to that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, there is.
Because you want to find. I think it's really super simple. I think for my thumbnails on my YouTube, I found a little formula that I like.
Uh huh.
That people will say, "Oh, I can see that one frame on my cell phone
Yeah.
and get what I'm going to be into."
Well, and
You
it's
know.
crazy because everybody has their own little form, you know? Like, once
Mhm.
you see a certain person's thumbnail, then it's like, oh, I know exactly whose that is. We all have our
Yes.
different forms. It's a cool thing. Everyone has their own different creative standpoint, and I'm sure that's the same way with composing music. Would you say?
It is. It is to a degree. There was a sub project I did the middle of last year, where they came up and they says, we really like the feel and sound of early and mid 1970s sitcom music.
Uh huh.
And I'm going, oh, that's interesting. Any particular ones? And they named the particular ones, and I go, okay, let me think about that. And that was a situation where I did not get at the piano at all, or on any instrument at all, and it's got. Quincy Jones used to say, if you can't sing it, if you can't boil it down to like playing it with one finger at the piano, and you kind of like get the, people get the gist of what you're doing,
Yeah.
you got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
It's too complicated,
Hmm.
because people want something that they can take away with them. They're not going to really get into your complexity, unless that's where their head's at. But generally, people are going to want. So that's what I did. I drove around, and when I had something that I could repeat over and over for like, over a period of 2 days, I go, well, that's the one. And so I wrote that down, and then I started working on all the details.
Yeah.
Like, well, how, what kind of band is this going to be?
You need to get
And
that solid base before.
yeah. Then you start laying down all those layers till and you play with it until it's exactly the way you want it to,
Uh-huh.
and it becomes a very rewarding experience
Yeah.
that way. When you have a plan, when you have a formula, when you have something to build off of, that's the best place to start.
Yeah, I really do like that, how you kind of listened to the different samples and, like you said, see which one sticks with you the most, and that will be your base, and then you build on from there. And I feel like that's where a lot of people fail in creative standpoints, is everyone just tries to rush into the details right away, and everyone just needs to take it slowly and establish that base. Um, Speaking of the channel and what we're on right now, when did you discover our channel?
Oh, that's interesting.
When did you start
Well,
watching bloggers in general about theme parks, like the horror nights industry?
well, it's interesting. It's amazing. There's worlds that people have created that other people are unaware of. I
Yeah.
was completely unaware of people that actually had this really cool side gig of going to um, amusement parks of
Uh-huh.
all sorts all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this one girl. Her name is Geek Notice.
Mhm.
That's Emily Ann, and she covers every aspect that you can imagine about every single uh, amusement park.
Yeah.
Right, from the gift shops to the food
Uh-huh.
to the best way to get the parking and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We've never discovered that, and I accidentally discovered it. When I knew that I had to go to Orlando. Well, let me
Yeah.
just go on YouTube and see what's going on. Maybe people are just attendees of the park are taking videos. Let me see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I discovered this entire industry.
Yeah. It's a big,
You know,
and it's big now. It used to be not that big, but it's huge now.
and people do it so wonderfully.
Uh-huh.
They do it so wonderfully. And I got to know some of the people that do it. There's Grim Life Collective. That's one of their things. They do not only amusement parks, but they do uh, movie locations of horror movies
Yeah.
and their favorite movies. They were just here a few months ago, and I went with them on a couple of shoots. I wasn't featured in the shoot. I just was there with them just to hang out for
Yeah.
half a day. And boy, they've got it down. They've
Oh
got the
yeah.
formula. They know what their audience likes. They over a period of time they learn how to talk to the camera. They learn how to communicate with their audience.
Uh-huh.
So I'd say when I discovered it, it was a couple of years ago, like 2018.
Yeah.
I discovered it.
That's crazy how the Scare Zone really brought you into the theme park realm, and seeing all these bloggers, and
That's how I discovered you.
yeah.
Yeah.
What was that? Was that post 2018 or was that before?
With you, I discovered when they announced they were going to have it here,
Uh-huh.
because you had made an announcement. So I had, obviously, on my YouTube feed, it would say, "Hey, here's
Here's a
these are the
recommendation.
things, these are things that you've been looking at," and yours was one of them. You made an announcement of the perspective from the time it was rumored to then it was confirmed,
Mhm.
what it might be like and all that sort of stuff. So obviously that's when I reached out to you, and I think when I saw you in person, I mean, because one thing you have is good. You have a very
A distinguished
specific,
look.
distinguished presence that you can pick out from a crowd, and when
Yeah.
you're there, you go, "Oh, that's my man."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Everybody says that, like, oh, it's so easy to notice you in a crowd. I'm like, yeah, I think that's a good thing and a bad thing sometimes. But yeah, it's really neat because, like, I knew that you were at Horror Nights on closing night, and I knew of you, and we contacted via social media and talked here and
Right.
there. We never met in person. And I knew that you were there. I was in a rush to get filming and everything, and just get all my filming done. And then when you came up to me, and I was like, what the hell? Because for those of you guys who haven't seen it, John came up to me and he's like, you don't have an authorization to film this maze. And I was like, well, who the hell is this guy to tell me I can't film this maze? And then after I thought about it, I was like, oh, John. I was just like so caught, but it was cool that we had that encounter, and now we're sitting here doing this podcast.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to Anthony from the Nights of Horror, who
Hey, Anthony.
yeah, he really brought me into this realm of kind of going more into talking to horror influencers. Like, I've always been a big theme park guy and a theme park influencer and everything, but he's brought me more into the realm of like podcasting, etc. So big shout out to you, Anthony. And I think
You
that's
guys
one of the
do.
cool things.
You guys do any broadcasting together?
Yeah, I just did a podcast with him, kind of this like rebrand of podcast that I'm doing. Um, I was there with him since day one of his channel and helped him out and everything, and then he's helped me out with like my podcast and everything. So it's a really neat. I love Anthony. He's a cool guy.
Yeah, yes.
What do you think the potential of a Killer Klowns second maze coming to Halloween Horror Nights sometime in the future? How do you think it'd work?
Well, gosh, I wish I could. I wish I could tell you that. I mean, I know my business really well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the attraction business very well.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. This is my guess that the feedback that I've been hearing from all the fans that went to the house, with Orlando, but not so much here. But at Orlando, they said they felt like, gosh, it felt so short. I liked the scare zone.
It was kind of small, or the maze was short.
Yeah.
Yeah, the maze was a little short.
5 minutes. It takes 5 minutes to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, I had lunch with the creative director, Anthony Michael Aiello, over at in Orlando.
Yeah,
and Michael said that it still amazes them to this day. They had creative executives from MGM, which own the intellectual property for Killer Klowns. They had them over, and they saw like 5,000 people in line. And he had to point out, these people are waiting for an experience that lasts 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And no one's
it's
complaining.
crazy with
Patient,
Halloween Horror Nights. It's the maze wait times are insane.
Yeah, but I think that's where people they get to hang out and talk, and they visit with people. There's a whole family atmosphere that I think people are fine with. They just know, it's a place where people can be together.
Exactly, and hang out together.
Yeah, and so from my perspective, I was going to for at least for Hollywood, when things blow, or maybe not this year, maybe next year, they'll have a scares where you can hang out with the clowns and people can dance with them and what have you, because it was really a big hit. And I mean, there's still all kinds.
And
it
almost was like that in Orlando. Like a lot of from the very beginning, I didn't go, but from videos, it looked like it was a normal scares in the beginning, and towards the end, it was more of like a almost meet and greet with the clowns, which was cool.
It was like a party.
Yeah.
It was and I actually thought that myself. I thought, we'll go there for a few minutes and then we'll go get a bite to eat. No, I got there. It had just gotten dark, and I was there till closing for several hours.
That's so cool.
I met one person after the other, and the clowns had to stay in character, but I was able to take really cool pictures with everyone. And YouTube is just loaded with hours and hours of wonderful footage from the scare zone in Florida.
Yeah, I love this. I hope we get a scare zone soon down here in Hollywood. I think that the potential's there. It just when the time is right. Did you ever sit down and talk with John Murdy? Are you familiar with John Murdy?
Oh yeah, John Murdy and I had several discussions, and we just before the red carpet, like about a month or two before the red carpet here in Hollywood, we were in contact with each other, and he had said that one of his favorite experiences when he first came to Hollywood was with the Dickies. And so to be able to meet the Dickies and to me and the Kyoto Brothers was a big deal for him, and I told him, hey, for you doing this thing is a really big deal for
That's
me.
a huge deal. It's crazy because John Murdy has turned into like such a celebrity at the event now.
He is. He's like the Grand Master. It's almost like there's this. He's a combination of Santa Claus, your favorite uncle, and Dr. Dark from Something Wicked This Way Comes.
It's so.
He has this, he's in control of this Halloween scary.
Yeah, he puts it all together. It's so funny, and I've known John for a while now, since like 10 years of going, and he's always been such a chill guy to talk to and just talk to him about everything. So that's really cool that he was like so excited to see you and the Kyoto Brothers and everything.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think that pretty much wraps it up. John, thanks for coming on. It's so amazing to see what you've done over the years. Truly, like, your music has inspired everybody, and to see that you're such a big part of the film is so heartwarming.
Thank you. It's been really great sitting here and talking with you, and I think you're um, to be able to communicate with not only you and your fan base,
Uh-huh.
and maybe give another perspective to this whole Killer Klowns thing.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed there were some questions that you didn't ask me, and I'm just so amazed. I'm glad you didn't ask me.
Yeah, well, see, because I knew with a lot of the questions that I'd written down a couple, and I was like, no, like
But these are all great questions. You
the
have some
the
really good
Killer
questions.
Klowns potential sequel. I didn't bring that up.
Okay, since you brought that cat out of the bag, first of all, let me dispel a myth. Some people think that 20th Century Fox
Uh-huh.
was going to do a sequel, and that when 20th Century Fox got bought by Disney, they shut it down. Well, let me tell you something. I know a little tiny bit about Disney because I've done the Wonderful World of Disney theme.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of part of the Disney family. My wife works in finance at the wonderful at Disney headquarters.
Well, there you go. You're a part of it.
And I can just tell you that if Disney had a hold of Killer Klowns from Outer Space, there would be a portion of California adventure that would definitely be have a killer clown. Like they would have recreated a Crescent Cove or something like that.
Yeah.
So the intellectual property holders are MGM.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And so that's that. And I don't know where the 20th Century Fox thing comes out.
Uh-huh.
But in any event, there's some wonderful things that I'm developing with the Killer Klowns brand that it has nothing to do with a movie.
Yeah.
But it's other things that we're working on.
Side projects.
I'm really looking forward to presenting, and definitely when we come out of this pandemic, there's going to be something for people to enjoy.
That's great, and that's great news to hear, just to keep all the Killer Klowns fans alive and excited for stuff, which is really neat. And like, I see that all these like new Funko Pops are coming out and everything, and it's just really neat. So
we were gonna have a big meetup in May, and I
Uh-huh.
think that might be delayed considerably.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, as a matter of fact, let me see. You can't. Well, since we're going audio, you can't see it, but I have the salespeople's cards.
Oh, that's cool.
We were beginning to organize something before all this craziness happened. So
well, hopefully we'll get to see that soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Or we might do it virtually. Who knows?
That'd be really neat.
Yeah.
But you guys can find John Massari across all the social media platforms, so you guys can keep up to date when that stuff is happening and when new stuff regarding Killer Klowns from Outer Space is coming out. John, as always, thanks again. This pleasure of having you on is great. And I'm happy that you could make some time out of your busy schedule to come on this podcast.
Well, it's a great honor, and I appreciate you having me over, and I look forward to seeing more stuff that you create.
And for those of you guys watching, subscribe if you're new here with those bell notifications on, and follow our Spotify. Soon you will see me and John Massari together again, whether it be a horror convention or whatever, but we got to meet up in person again and do something.
Absolutely.
Follow our social medias across the board. SoCal Exploring Media on Instagram, at SoCal Exploring on Twitter. You guys know where to find us. All linked down in the description. Positivity is key. And most importantly, remember to keep exploring. Peace out, everybody.
Take care.